This is huge, and for people who don't understand the Joe Rogan phenomenon and the massive, massive reach he has and the type of audience he has, Alex, because it's not just conservatives or right-leaning people. Joe Rogan was a big Bernie Sanders fan for the longest time. The whole COVID craziness seemed to red pill him a little bit, but he's got a very diverse audience, a massive audience, and Trump appearing on that program, I think, is going to be significant.
Donald Trump, the former president, has once again made headlines with his latest comments where he didn't hold back, as usual. In a recent interview, Trump slammed President Joe Biden, calling out the media for what he describes as their continuous spread of fake news. But that's not all. Trump also opened up about his views on some unexpected figures, including Joe Rogan and the state of late-night comedy, calling the current hosts boring and unfunny. In this video, we'll break down exactly what Trump said, why it matters, and how it reflects the larger shifts happening in both politics and media. Trump versus Biden, the fake news feud continues. Let's start with Trump's latest attack on President Joe Biden. This time, Trump took aim not just at Biden's policies, but also at what he sees as a widespread media cover-up of Biden's failures. According to Trump, the mainstream media has been working overtime to protect Biden from the kind of scrutiny that Trump himself endured during his presidency. Trump specifically pointed to issues like inflation, the southern border crisis, and what he calls Biden's foreign policy failures. He claims that the media is either downplaying or outright ignoring these issues, shielding Biden from accountability. For example, Trump criticized how Biden's handling of the economy, particularly the rising inflation and cost of living, has been treated differently in the media compared to how economic issues were reported during Trump's time in office. Trump also addressed the ongoing border crisis, stating that the media's coverage of the situation has been soft on Biden. He claims that if the same issues were happening under his administration, the media would have crucified him for it. He went as far as to say that the media is actively trying to protect Biden by either underreporting or spinning the news in a way that makes Biden look better. This is nothing new from Trump, who has long claimed that the media is biased against him. Since his 2016 campaign, Trump has used the term fake news to describe what he sees as the mainstream media's attempts to undermine his presidency and spread misinformation.
Can you give us a chance?
Your organization
You are
is
attacking
terrible.
our news organization.
Your organization
Can you give
is
us a
terrible.
chance
Let's
to
go.
ask a question, sir?
Go ahead.
Sir, can
Quiet.
you state,
Quiet.
Mr. President-elect,
Go ahead.
can you state
She's asking
categorically,
a question.
Mr.
Don't be rude.
President-elect, can you give us a question?
Don't be
You're
rude.
attacking us. Can you give us a question?
Don't be rude.
Can you
No,
give
I'm not
us a
going to give you a
question?
question. I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you state categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir,
go ahead.
can you state categorically that nobody...
But in this latest attack, Trump seems more focused on how the media treats Biden, arguing that there is a double standard in how the two administrations are covered. Trump's thoughts on Joe Rogan. Now, let's shift gears and talk about Trump's surprising comments on Joe Rogan. For those who may not be familiar, Joe Rogan is a podcaster with a massive following, known for his long-form discussions on everything from politics and science to comedy and culture. Rogan's influence has grown to the point where his podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience, reaches millions of listeners and viewers each episode. Interestingly, despite Rogan's occasional criticisms of Trump, the former president had mostly positive things to say about him. Trump praised Rogan for his straightforward approach, calling him someone who tells it like it is.
You're doing a lot of podcasts recently. One that I would love to see you on is, I think Joe Rogan has to have you on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you do that?
Oh, sure I would.
I think Joe, like, besides us, Joe's
I
obviously-
think I'm doing it, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So you are going to do Joe Rogan?
Yeah, I am.
Joe Rogan's the best in the game for sure. And I think, you know,
Did
him
Joe
having-
become so well known because of the UFC? And he does a great job with that, right? What was it that made Joe the best?
during COVID, you know, he was very outspoken on all the corruption going on during COVID. And I think that's personally when I started watching him a lot too. And just, he's an honest guy too, right?
He is.
So I think
Good guy.
good guy. And I think you guys together would just
And he's got a good voice. That's important.
yeah.
According to Trump, Rogan's success comes from his ability to have open, honest conversations, often about controversial topics, without worrying about political correctness or mainstream narratives. Trump highlighted the fact that Rogan isn't afraid to go against the grain, even when it brings him under fire. This was particularly evident when Rogan faced significant backlash over his comments on COVID-19, which sparked calls from critics to have Spotify remove his podcast from their platform. Trump praised Rogan for standing firm during this controversy, saying that Rogan stood up to the cancel culture mob and didn't back down, which Trump found admirable. What's interesting here is that Rogan has made it clear he's not a fan of either Trump or Biden, frequently criticizing both men on his podcast. Rogan has expressed frustration with the current political system as a whole, calling it corrupt and dysfunctional. However, Trump seems to respect Rogan's willingness to challenge the media and the establishment, something that Trump has built his own political brand around. Trump also commented on how Rogan's approach is a reflection of what people want to see in media today. He noted that audiences are turning to platforms like Rogan's because they're tired of the mainstream media's scripted, sanitized content. In Trump's view, Rogan's podcast represents a new kind of media, one where real, uncensored conversations happen without interference from corporate interests or political agendas. Trump on late-night hosts, it's all boring. Now let's get to one of the most entertaining parts of Trump's recent interview, his comments on the current state of late-night television.
I also want to apologize to you because I've said a few things about you over the years that are, in polite company, perhaps are unforgivable.
Almost.
Almost unforgivable.
And some nice things. Not too much.
Trump has long had a contentious relationship with late-night hosts, many of whom, like Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Kimmel, and Seth Meyers, made Trump the target of their political satire throughout his presidency. But this time, Trump didn't just take a swipe at their criticism of him. He went further, calling the entire late-night landscape boring and unfunny. Donald Trump has once again made headlines by slamming President Biden.
And I say that, and that's something that Nazi Germany would have done and did do. I think it's a disgrace. That information that was false and fake and never happened got released to the public. As far as BuzzFeed, which is a failing pile of garbage, writing it, I think they're going to suffer the consequences. They already are. And as far as CNN going out of their way to build it up,
calling out the media for spreading fake news, and sharing his thoughts on Joe Rogan and the current state of late-night television. His comments give us a glimpse into how Trump views the evolving media landscape and suggests that he sees these independent platforms as the future of public discourse.